thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you being here and helping the GSRC out with this. So first and foremost, which college or university did you attend for your undergraduate degree?
I went to University of North Carolina, Wilmington.
And then what did you major and minor in during college?
So my major was community health education, and my minor was women and gender studies.
So what drew you to WGS?
I knew I cared about like women's health specifically, and wanted to focus on that. I actually knew I wanted to be a midwife before I went to college. Originally, I was going to do nursing, but then I actually got to spend 5 months in the Philippines at a birthing home.
Wow. Okay.
And yeah, and so I just got to see different ways to approach midwifery.
Okay. Yeah.
I realized that I definitely didn't want to work in a hospital, and then I also just saw how important education was at the birthing home. It was a huge component of the care that they gave. And so I decided I wanted to do community health education and then become a licensed midwife or a certified professional midwife instead of doing nursing and then nurse midwifery. It's hard to answer because it wasn't even really like a question for me. It just fit perfectly because that was going to be my whole focus, like families and
So that's a fairly unique position to be in, knowing that early on what you're passionate about or what you want to go into. What inspired that or what provoked that?
Well, from a very early age, I was obsessed with babies, honestly. Like I was like a toddler myself and I was obsessed with babies, but and people would even ask me like, oh, do you want to do like labor and delivery? And I'd be like, what? Like screaming people and goo and no, I don't. And then I started nannying for a mom who had had hospital births and she had had home births. And she
Okay.
just talked about maternity care in the United States and how lacking it was and how it's a male dominated field. And that a lot of women aren't given choices when they're giving birth. Maybe they're not feeling super respected or supported. They're not feeling understood. And it just blew my mind as a 15-year-old. Like, what? Like, that's blowing. I never would have thought it would be terrible like that. And then, yeah, she talked to me about her home birth experiences and how it was just such a different experience. And
Yeah.
she felt completely respected and she had choices and she had options. And I think, for me, it's not home birth versus hospital birth. I support people I help care for people who are planning hospital birth.
Yeah.
They're both completely valid choices, but I think choice is the biggest factor.
Okay.
And the most important thing about it is that you're going where you feel comfortable, where you feel safe, and where you have care providers that are going to respect you and treat you well. But yeah, so she just opened my mind to that whole concept of maternity care in the United States versus in other countries, and how really our numbers aren't that great here. Our outcomes are not that great, even though we're one of the countries that spends the most on our maternity care.
Yeah.
And so something's been here. We're doing something wrong. I think we're probably not listening to families enough and moms and what they really want. But so I actually also got to witness a birth of hers, a home birth.
Oh, wow.
And I was just like, it's not goo and people screaming. It's this amazing, powerful experience that, where someone needs support and,
Yeah.
or someone to stay out of their way and not, at the very least. So,
Yeah.
after that birth, I was like, I want to be a midwife. I want to do this for the rest of my life. So, yeah, so it's funny because people now are like, you're so lucky that you knew. And it's like, yes, very lucky that I knew, but I was also kind of a weirdo because like, yeah, like no other 15-year-old is like, placentas are so cool, so.
Yeah. No, that's fair. But that's
Yeah.
amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
So what is your current job title and where are you currently employed?
So, my there's kind of like a couple aspects to this answer.
Mhm.
One, I'm a certified professional midwife, which is a national certification. It's recognized in most states, but not all. I believe we're up to like 36 states or something like that. It was only like, maybe it's more now, but anyway, that recognize certified professional midwives. And then I live in California, so I'm
Okay.
a licensed midwife. I'm licensed by the Medical Board of California,
Okay.
which California is a great state to work in as a midwife
Yeah.
for that reason. And that gives us a lot of credibility. We are autonomous providers, so we're primary care providers. We don't need physician supervision. Um, and then I have more than one job. I work at Best Start Birth Center, which is the oldest birth center in San Diego.
Oh.
Um, and it's an amazing place. We take Medi-Cal, TRICARE, and of course, most like PPOs and all of that. But I also run the CPSP program there, which is the Comprehensive Perinatal Services Program, which is offered through Medi-Cal, where I spend extra time with Medi-Cal moms, make sure they have all the resources they need, and talk through their mental emotional health, nutrition, different health education topics. Because our midwife appointments, they're definitely longer than your average appointment with an OBGYN, but they're not like a whole hour or anything like that. Like home birth midwives,
Yeah.
like when I take care of home birth clients, I spend at least an hour with them for their appointments usually.
Okay.
But Best Start is like a very busy birth center. So we do like about 20 to 30-minute appointments. And then I get that an extra like hour and a half for the first visit anyway with Medi-Cal clients, and all this other stuff comes out,
Yeah.
that just don't have as much time for, like relationship challenges. And there's this miscarriage that I never told anybody about, or there's this termination I never told anybody about. And,
Mhm.
um, just helping people process that and get ready for their next baby and
Yeah.
all of that. So I do clinic at Best Start. I'm a licensed midwife there. So I'm at births there. And then I also do the comprehensive perinatal services program. So that's my Best Start job. And then I also do home birth. I'm actually starting my own home birth practice. And I also do monitrice care, which is similar to being a doula, where I support families who are planning a hospital birth.
Mhm.
But because I'm a wife, I can offer them medical care at home so that they can stay home as long as possible in labor before going to the hospital.
Is there a typical day for you? Like, and what would
Um,
that typical day look like if there is one?
more like a more like a typical week where like
Okay.
Mondays, Wednesdays, I'm taking care of my home birth practice, doing admin for it, seeing clients, either, prenatal visits or postpartum visits. We do a lot of in-home postpartum care.
Okay.
Um, and then Tuesday, Thursday, I'm doing the CPSP program at Best Start. And then Fridays, I'm doing clinic at Best Start. And then I'm on call, like kind of for a lot of shifts sprinkled throughout there. So
Okay.
I'm on call at Start. And then for my home birth clients, I'm trying to only really take 2 clients a month, maybe 4 at the very most, but because you're on call for them 24/7 and
Yeah.
it's a lot of, so, um, yeah, but I'm on call for them like all the time
Okay.
because
Which
they could
makes
give birth
sense.
at any.
So, what path did you take to get this job, where or to get where you are now? Multiple jobs. Um, did you do anything in between your undergraduate degree, and anything else in between, or was it diving straight into this?
Yeah, I went to midwifery school.
Okay.
So, yeah, and also at UNCW, I did an internship with a lactation consultant
Oh,
at a
great.
local hospital, and that was an incredible experience. Interact with patients. I got to do like interviews because they were working on becoming baby friendly at their hospital, which is a designation started by the CDC and the World Health Organization to try and increase breastfeeding rates.
Okay.
They did a study that showed like most people enter the hospital wanting to breastfeed, and then like I don't remember exactly, but a large percentage of them leave the hospital 2 days later not breastfeeding already, like just in 2 days. So it's like an overhaul of the whole hospital, like getting rid of every like image of formula or a pacifier or a bottle, and severing relationships with formula companies, which you lose free formula that way. But and then having lactation consultants, there's a lot of components to it. But I did education. I created education that was going to be used for clients into the future, and then like PowerPoints to help educate staff. And then I also got to interact with patients on a direct level, like doing interviews to make sure, like, were you able to breastfeed within the first 2 hours of the birth? Like, like making
Okay.
sure the program was that we were adhering to all of those things. And it was so cool. I mean, because of that experience, I still think about like going back and getting my master's in maternal and child health and doing
Yeah.
research. And I mean, it would be great if there was a program like that for natural birth that
Mm.
was like, were you offered a peanut ball? Were you offered intermittent monitoring and to get in the shower? And, like if people had that kind of support in the hospital, we'd have a lot lower intervention rates.
Yeah.
I think, and I think epidurals are wonderful when they're necessary or when they're desired. But when they're offered every hour, like, it's going to be too late soon, are you sure you don't want one? And it's not about like, do it without it because, you're not whatever if you don't. That's not true. But it's
Mhm.
more, epidurals do pose risks, like every intervention brings a risk. So let's make sure it's worth it, like that it's
Yeah.
actually needed or desired.
Thus far in your career, what are you most proud of accomplishing?
That's a great question. I mean, when I got licensed as a midwife, I think I was 25. And so at that point, it had been a 10-year dream because
Um,
I was 15 when I first,
yeah.
like, yeah, I want to do this. Honestly, that was a huge accomplishment for me because I moved out to California all by myself. My family lives in North Carolina. I didn't know anybody out here,
Okay.
and completely supported myself through midwifery school and paid off some school debt at the same time. So just honestly surviving that
Yeah.
is that I'm definitely proud of that for sure. Cause that was a licensed midwife is definitely like better than being a midwifery student. That was a hard time.
What would 22 or 21-year-old you think about your current positions?
I think I would be thrilled that I'm working full time as a midwife
Yeah.
because because it is, especially like an out of hospital midwife, you are either a business owner and like you're just supporting yourself that way, or you're piecing together multiple things. So yeah, I think I would be really happy that I'm supporting moms, and I think I'd be happy with the midwife that I am today.
How has your minor in WGS benefited you in either in the workforce or in your personal life or both?
Yeah, I mean, I think it affects my job like every day. I come into contact with women's issues, and I work with people who are gender fluid and agender. And I think like, I think back to my women's anthropology classes, and how birth, I think of like traditional birthing and like how we use techniques from that today. And I did an honors thesis at UNCW about women's birth experiences.
Okay.
So I got to get really deep into the academic aspect of what I'm doing now, and it
Yeah.
it definitely influences me today still. Yeah.
And is there any advice you have for undergraduate students who are currently minoring in WGS or considering minoring in WGS?
I would just say like you don't have to know exactly how it's going to fit
Yeah.
yet. You can, I think going with what you're passionate about is so important, and that's going to lead you. So if you follow what you're really passionate about, there are like many different avenues you could take it. I think that's one of the difficult parts is like, well, there's actually so many different ways I could apply this and different things I could do with this, and which avenue am I going to take? But it's okay to not know exactly yet.